Good evening, everybody. I'm so excited to be with you for another edition of Fresh Brewed Kentucky Politics. I know some of you are surprised. You're like, Andrew, you're in such a good mood. They just announced a cost bill for $44K on that impeachment. Oh my gosh, aren't you on the hook for a lot of money? And I hear you. And I'm still in a good mood. I'm going to tell you why, okay? Because I am excited. First, let me do my obligatory share us and like us. Or if you don't like us, you don't like us. I'm sorry you feel that way about us. But, you're listening to me, which is fantastic. Thank you. But if you would like to donate, and as I just said, we have a lot of court costs going on. If you want to help, you don't have to help. If you don't like what we're doing as far as it goes, if you don't like what we have going on, don't donate. But if you want to donate, it's donate.brewedco.com. Donate.brewedco.com. I promise you guys, Roy, you're going to be seeing some fun court cases. We already filed one yesterday to help in the mandate, or 2 days ago to help in these mandates once and for all, and we will be continuing to do that wonderful business that is fighting for liberty. Why? Well, quite frankly, at this point, I don't have much to lose, and what I mean by that is everybody knows what we're about at Brood. Everybody knows everything about me, pretty much, as far as that goes. I can take the slings and arrows. I can take those hits, and I don't really care because, well, quite frankly, every day that I exist past last couple of months is a positive day for me because the government was coming for everything anyway. So if we don't stand now, when will we stand? So you want to support us? Come down to the coffee shop. Buy some coffee offline. Brewedco.com. BREWEDCO.com, donate.brewedco.com. I did all that. Share us, too. Only like 4 shares in the last video, guys. Come on, hit that share video. Watch us on the podcast. So let's break it down. Let's talk about impeachment costs, right? Made their announcement today. I think I just got a text. They just sent me my official cost bill of $44,444.29. Remember, the governor sent a cost bill for his time and expenses for $18,000, and now the impeachment committee has tacked on this other $25,000-ish, okay, which is fun and exciting, and we will see what's going on with that. What is the cost bill for? A lot of people want to know, what's the cost bill for? Well, the cost bill first is the governor's time. Now, the lawyer's time and everything else. Now, a lot of you guys are wondering, why are they sending you the bill? Aren't these people all government workers? Yes, they are. Yes, they are just fulfilling their job. And there is a statute that says this cost gets pushed on, but we shall see what happens. We do have an ability to object to these costs. We do have the ability to object line by line, and I'm sure we will be happy to do that, and we definitely will. And as I said before, you're going to be seeing some interesting moves by us over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned and check us out. But please donate to the causes. It does take a lot of personal costs and everything else as far as that goes. But yes, the impeachment costs were hit. It only took them another, 3 executive sessions in private once again to come up with this cost bill. They are not charging us, I heard, for the legislators' time. Once again, somebody else can weigh in on this, maybe in the comments. Jacob Clark might. I did hear he's one of the other petitioners, which is why he might be able to see that cost bill. But I did hear they were charging us for like KSB Security's time, which is there anyways, and several other things. So it'll be very interesting to see, and we'll see what happens. We've certainly have an interesting strategy moving forward, and I think everyone's going to be surprised. However, once again, why do we do these fights? A lot of people are confused. They're like, why do you fight a fight? Well, first off, we don't fight fights that are easy, because if they were, everybody would do it, right? You would do it, I would do it, everybody would do it. It's an easy fight. It's easy to go say, I'm going to go fight to name a highway something. I'm going to go fight to build a statue about somebody. I'm going to go fight for something that everybody agrees with necessarily. It is, yes, Jacob Clark confirmed, no legislators' time charged on that. Thank you, Jacob. It is easy to say these things, but to physically go out and put your name on the line, to physically go out and deal with these things, why do we do it? They're difficult. Some of them are long shots, some of them are not. Some of them are done in a trolling sense. Some of them are done to just make things freer. But what is our overall goal? What is my personal goal? A lot of people think it's about the money. It is clearly not, as we're getting hit with cost bills and risking quite a lot. There are easier ways to make money, clearly. It would clearly probably be more profitable for me to just give this up and try to go get a job doing what I used to do before this. And maybe that's the case, I don't know. But one of the simple ideas that we fight for is this idea that you do have a right to your life, your liberty, and your property. And you have a right to that property. And I think we've seen this country, and I tack it back to when Obama said, you didn't build that. And me as a business owner looking at that, where Obama says, you didn't build that, certainly I think changed a lot of the ways people think. And a lot of people don't realize this. I am but a high school graduate. I didn't go to college. I don't come from a rich family per se. It's not like my family gave me a lot. I will say I did have a good set of parents that taught me a lot about life and clearly raised me the right way, in my opinion. But they didn't give me money or anything like that. I worked very hard, and I continue to work hard, and when I advocate for these things, that's the thought process, right? I'm advocating for the American dream because I've seen it work. It's worked for me. It can work for others as far as, and what I mean by that is being able to take yourself and say, I can start my own business. I can fight for that American dream that is to be able to start here and finish much higher, and then also, and more importantly, be able to pass that on to your child. And for those who've never started a business or those who don't understand that concept, that is the idea. The idea is not to pass on to my child the ability to survive, the ability to pass on to others just this ability to just exist. The idea is to pass on a bigger and better world to your whoever comes after you, and that is the things to fight for. And the concept, and this important concept, that what you earn in life is yours. And I think we've seen that certainly fade away, but that's what that's what the Founding Fathers originally fought for. If you guys go back and read the Federalist Papers, I encourage you to do so. That is the original ideas, this original founding ideas, is the fact that you have a right to do what you want to do with your property, and we have a right to hold our government accountable. And that's what we fight for. And that's what the impeachment fight was about. It wasn't necessarily going to fix anything per se, because obviously there's no guarantees removing Andy would fix unemployment. There's no guarantees about that at all. What it is about, and what it will continue to be about, is holding them accountable for their actions. Incredibly important thing. So cost bill comes down $42,444. and 5 cents. I'm sure you're going to be seeing some news stories about that. Every time you see people commenting about it, just remember, we're still fighting on this one, and nothing is over yet. Okay, so moving forward as well, we saw some big things today with SB8 passing the House, going to the governor's desk, where I'm sure it will sit for 10 days to promptly be vetoed or just not signed and sent back in to the Senate and House to vote on it again and pass it. But it was passed in enough time to do this. What is SB8? That is the non-mandatory vaccine bill. It is important in a way. Right now, the COVID vaccine cannot be mandated because it is not FDA approved. And I made a joke about this earlier on our Facebook saying, the same people that sit there telling me that because I pushed back on government regulations, people were going to die. They're going to die. Everyone's dying. Those same people are advocating for individuals to take something that isn't approved by government regulation. Now, am I saying that means government regulation is bad, or am I saying that, well, I think it is to a point, overblown a lot of times. Am I saying that means necessarily vaccine is bad? No. Look at your own evidence. Look everything up. If you want to take the vaccine, take the vaccine. I'm not here to tell you not to take it. I'm just pointing out it's funny to me that the same people that think government regulation is what's going to save lives is advocating for something that had to go around government regulations in order to, in their minds, save lives. And if anything, it just points it out. And I remember several months ago, I was listening to a conservative pundit making fun of, and quote-unquote conservative, the rhino, the conservative. I've decided, left, right, whatever, I've decided there's actually two types of people, and I could be wrong, and I'll probably change this, whatever, but people who believe that government is a evil, a necessary evil maybe, but an evil regardless, and people who believe government is there to solve problems. And there's a people out there that think government should be used to solve problems, not just used to fulfill that necessary need, that necessary evil that government has to be instituted to fulfill. And there was a conservative that, and I quotations for those who can't see me that are listening on the podcast, and he had said something along the lines of, those liberty people are crazy. You'll hear them say things like, get rid of the FDA. And I'm all on board with everything they say. And the minute they say, get rid of the FDA, I'm like, oh, that's kind of crazy, crazy uncle. Meanwhile, we see the FDA rules being suspended because they're holding back a cure they want to see. That is point case that these regulations are going over are too much. Because let me ask you this. You decided you could suspend these these drug regulations at the FDA because they worked best for a situation you cared about. But to those individuals that have cancer, to those individuals that are paying too much for insulin because there's too many things for FDA approval, for those paying too much for medications because of the FDA regulations, and for those who don't understand how that works, just look at the FDA, the way the FDA works here in America compared to elsewhere, and you'll start to understand why medication can cost so much. But for those people, those FDA regulations are equally as deadly to them. Those FDA regulations equally get in the way of achieving the things they want to achieve. But yet you don't see any call for you to suspend those. But when it's something you care about, it's about COVID. I care about it. That is something I care about because the fear has been bred into me, and I'm afraid of it. And that's okay if you want to be afraid of it. Be afraid of it. That's fine. But because it affects you personally, you're okay with removing a regulation. But when it affects another person, right, removing regulations when it comes to people who are terminally ill or people dealing with cancer or terrible diseases, and there's medications that are in the process of being approved, but the FDA is slowing down their approval. For those people, you don't care because you are selfish. I've never seen more selfishness than I've seen during this COVID time. What's funny and ironic is these individuals that call us selfish, while they're okay with suspending FDA regulations when it works for them, but when it's about somebody else that maybe wants them suspended for their issue, can't happen. In fact, it's okay. They want you to wear a mask because they're afraid to walk around outside, and they can't stay home, so they want you to wear one, compared to, them just staying home. So really, who's the selfish one, I guess? And it just becomes clear as we see more and more evidence that the Covidians, as I call them, are quite clearly the ones who are maybe the most selfish. And on the subject of interesting selfishness or weirdness there, recently the CDC came out with, they have this weird guidelines where they say if you get vaccinated, you got to still wear a mask. You got to do this, you got to do that. It's not safe. Remember, Biden's speech the other night, he sits there and he says, hey, hopefully we can all get vaccinated by May 1st. It'll be available to everyone or anything else. And I have a theory about that I'm going to give you guys here in a second. And he says, hey, by July 4th, you'll be able to gather for Independence Day. For your freedom, you can gather for it. But only with your neighbors. No large gatherings at all. But hey, you can barbecue with your neighbor next door by July 4th. Meanwhile, maybe he's not talking to the CDC. I don't know. But the CDC's sitting there saying if you are vaccinated and it's been a month and you're in a room with somebody who had COVID and you even are in that room for an amount of time longer than just a few seconds, you don't even need to worry about being quarantined. You don't even got to worry about getting tested. Don't worry about it. Go about your life. If everybody's going to have the ability to have the vaccine available to you by May 1st, and those who want to get it can get it, and the CDC in their own guidelines is recognizing that if you have been vaccinated, COVID is of no threat to you, why will we still be only able to hang out with a couple people come July? Got to never let a good crisis go to waste, I guess. And we'll be talking about how they're using this crisis to now fight the next thing on their list of agenda to turn it into a big old win for them is poverty. And we'll talk about that here in a second, about how to fight poverty. But speaking of Biden's speech, if you can call it that, it certainly seemed more like a meandering mumbling of a variety of subjects. But speaking of his speech, he's talking about he needs everybody available for vaccination by May 1st. Now, why is he saying this? Right? Why is he saying this? Well, remember, Biden has a goal. 100 million vaccinations, 100 days in. He's on pace to hit that goal. Except, is he having a problem? Is he having a problem with vaccine hesitancy? People not getting vaccinated? I am curious to know. Because and this is all speculation. But are they seeing, because they see numbers they won't show us. Are they seeing, because I'm seeing articles about healthcare workers, 30-40% of healthcare workers not getting vaccinated. I'm seeing stories about 30-40% of senior citizens not getting vaccinated, seeing a lot of vaccine hesitancy. Normally with the flu vaccine, you only see about 40 to the high side, 50% of people getting vaccinated for the flu in the first place. Are they seeing so much vaccine hesitancy that if they don't roll this out to everybody, they will not hit their 100 million vaccines by 100 days because there won't be enough people in these age, in these brackets as they're rolling it out in these processes. Will there not be enough people willing to get vaccinated to hit that 100 million? Will that be the new issue? Right? I'm certainly seeing them ramping up some advertising things. I'm seeing some messages from random influencers that sell jewelry or things like that, getting contacted and try to be paid for pushing out the vaccine. Are they seeing vaccine hesitancy? Well, why are they seeing it? Well, I can tell you this much. The first reason why you're going to see some vaccine hesitancy is because people like myself who are under 30 can look at the numbers. We're not idiots, and we see that, it's really not that dangerous to us. And if our seniors are getting vaccinated and you're saying they are safe if they are vaccinated, what would be the reason if I'm under 30 and I say, COVID's not really that dangerous to me, and it's just not. And do not try to sell me on the fact it is. I can see the numbers. I'm not an idiot. The part of the problem with people in college and everything else and kids, right, the reason why we couldn't return to school is not because kids die from COVID, which they don't. They die more from the flu. I mean, of course, a kid has died from COVID, of course. But statistically speaking, it is near zero. The flu kills far more children every year. But the reason why we couldn't return is because we're worried about this getting spun up and infecting others, right? The concern from scientists over returning to school has not been kids getting COVID, but then passing it to other people. Well, once again, if the CDC is now saying you can be in a room with somebody who's had COVID and not have to worry about getting tested and not having to worry about being quarantined. If you don't have to worry about that, there is not a good reason to require it to be passed on unless you can sell it to us. And why would you need to sell it? Well, they've been pushing this idea that you need to get vaccinated and all this money they spend on vaccinated to make COVID go away. Well, what if only 25, 30% of the population, 33%, 100 million would be about 30%, I believe. Somebody can check my math on that. What happens if they get vaccinated and no one else does because they can't hit above 100 million? And so in turn, they end up now having spent all this money on this vaccine, and then COVID's gone away pretty much. Nobody's dying from COVID because, of course, the older population who it's more a danger to, weighing pros and cons, are deciding to go ahead and get vaccinated. And now it's not a whole lot of danger, and COVID goes away, or it becomes a drone in the back of your head about COVID this and COVID that. Well, you can't. You look foolish. You look silly. You've been pushing out vaccines are the answer, and then a bunch of people don't get vaccinated, but yet COVID still goes away. It asks questions. Questions that I think they're trying to avoid. And they're avoiding that by trying to push this out. So that is my, I guess you call it conspiracy theory. I mean, maybe it is. Who knows? But that's my theory behind why are they suddenly making sure by May 1st you would get everybody vaccinated that's over 18, is because they're worried they're not going to have enough people taking the vaccine to hit that 100 million mark. Also, I remember, too, when Trump said by June, right? Was it June? June, I believe, that everybody who wanted a vaccine could get one by June of next year, and everyone's like, he's crazy. And yet we're saying in May under Biden. And that is surely because of his amazing leadership, I'm sure. And so Biden's speech, very interesting, very telling that they still plan on in July 4th having us held back, even though we're seeing a clear downward trajectory that will just continue. And eventually at some point, we have to just say, we will need to move on. We will just have to say, and if a new strain comes out that goes around it, we're just going to have to say, we cannot keep doing this. Clearly. I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, they're using this as an excuse to just blow out the spending. I mean, and what's real funny with this bill that he's claiming victory on, this $1.9 trillion bill, that also is going to be amazingly used to fight poverty, and one of the things that bill does is it extends unemployment until September of this year. September of this year. If you really want to fix poverty, what you do is you get people a job. That's what you do, right? That's what fixes poverty. People work. Somebody today, shout out to Brian O'Leary, who was talking to me today. He sent me this. We were chatting inside the coffee shop there. As always, community coffee shop is not there. And he sent me a verse we were talking about, because we were talking about welfare spending, and he reminded me of Proverbs 16:26 that says, a worker's appetite works for him, his mouth urges him on. And it's so true that what we need to do to fight poverty, to fight unemployment, is get people jobs. Why don't people have jobs? Well, people don't have jobs for two reasons. One, there are no jobs to go to. Or two, because they're being paid to not have a job. When you're extending this unemployment benefit till September of this year, that certainly causes some issues. Additionally, as well, so what would be my solution? So you say, Andrew, there's 7%, 6% unemployment in some of these areas. What's your answer? Here's my answer. One, open up the economy, stop putting restrictions on it. And third, let's create some low-cost SB8 loans to any with low restrictions as far as personal incomes or credit, for anybody who can show that they owned a business that was profitable for at least 2 years prior to COVID. So for 2 years prior to COVID, you had a profitable business. COVID came along, no fault of your own. You lost your business. Let's offer you a low-cost loan, a low-interest loan, which one I think can make some money, but also will actually bring back the jobs that COVID has lost. I don't need you to make the world better. I need you to go ahead and return us to where we were. Our budgetary shortfall, due to COVID is somewhere around, I believe, $550 billion is what I saw. Yet we're spending way more than that in these COVID relief bills. It's not a COVID relief bill. In fact, it spends more money on schools in, I believe, 2026 than it spends money on schools this year. How does that make any sense if it's a COVID relief bill? So anyways, he does his victory lap on this bill, think they're changing the world. They think they're going to use this to go ahead and fight poverty because they think helicopter and cash solves poverty, which it clearly doesn't. This is coming from the same strain of people that think you solve homelessness by giving homeless people a house. Do you think the person is homeless because they don't have a house and they just don't have one? Or do you think they're homeless because there's something else up where they can't have a job, they can't pay for a house, they can't pay for other things like that. And there's a greater issue to people who are like homeless than just giving them a home. But of course, there's people out there that think you just give a homeless person a home, it solves their problem, because they have a lack of understanding of complex issues. And they have a lack of understanding and idea of this one-size-fits-all strategies we see out of government all the time. Because they think that's how you do it. There's a one-size-fits-all. There's not. Each individual homeless person, for an example, and I know I'm getting off a tangent about homeless, but stay with me. Each individual homeless person has an individual story about how they became homeless. And each one has their own problem that needs to be solved. And this can only be served by their local community of nonprofits, not by government, elected bureaucrats who are controlled by lobbyists, but by local nonprofits that take the time to understand each individual person's story and how to fix that. But that's from the same people that think you solve homelessness by giving people homes, which you don't. But let's talk about poverty. How do you solve poverty, right? What's the issue of poverty? Well, here's an example for you. There's simple indicators of poverty, okay? Here it is. Did you graduate high school? That's an important thing. Do you get married? Okay. Graduate high school. Do you get married? And third, do you get a job? Okay. Now, you could be saying to yourself, Andrew, that's so simple. What do you mean? Here's the basics. Okay. So let's take the city of Lexington for an example. If you have a high school diploma in Lexington, you have to almost physically try to not be able to get a job that pays $10 an hour. You have to physically try. Okay. And that's just a job that pays $10 an hour. So if you go and get married to an individual, who cares? I don't care what the gender of the other individual is. I don't care what you are. Once again, you go out and you get married. What's that mean? Well, now you have two incomes in a household. You're adults, right? You're supposed to. Back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when women started entering into the workplace more, we saw some price increases. In fact, Elizabeth Warren wrote a book about this called The Two-Income Trap. Quite frankly, in our society, you do have to have two incomes in a home as an adult if you want to be able to if you want to really be able to live comfortably. You can in Lexington make $10 an hour and survive in Lexington, and I'd be happy to break that down. But I'm going to break down this idea of poverty, needing help from the government to survive. So, you graduate high school, and then you get married. And you both make $10 an hour. Well, how much is that? Well, let's take $10 an hour, and let's remove the 30% government VIG, okay? So both of you make $7 an hour, and you both only work 40 hours a week. Well, that is a household income of $29,120 or $22,426 a month. Let's take out $800 for rent. That's a pretty nice single bedroom apartment here in Lexington. I definitely think you could find one for cheaper, as I have done so in Lexington as an individual. You can take out $200 for utilities. We'll take out $800 for the two of you guys to eat, pay for your food. And what do you have left? Well, what you go ahead and have left there is $626. Let's take out $250 for a car payment. You guys are going to share a car. $150 for rent on that. That leaves you $226 for gas. You can survive on a two-income household for $10 an hour here in Lexington. You just can, and that's only if you make $10 an hour. Now, you can easily go over here in Lexington to Amazon or to any of these factories, and they hire constantly and make $13, $14, $15 an hour. Up yourself to $15, you make another net $3 or $4 an hour. Both of you do. That's an additional $1,039 a month. Keeping your bills the same, sharing a car, you now have $1,200 after your expenses. Now, you could be saying, Andrew, that's real easy to say, but what if there's all kinds of situations? You got your single moms, you got your other things. I hear you. I understand you. You got your people who don't graduate high school. I understand exactly what you're saying. But here's the problem when you say those things is you're asking government to take accountability for someone else's decisions. What do I mean by that? And I'm saying this as somebody opening up my life a little bit. I had my child when I was 19 years old and I was not married. What did I do? Right? What did I do? I only have a high school diploma. Remember this. I said, giddy up, let's go. And I got to work because I had a child I had to provide for and I didn't expect the government to pay for my decisions. And that's what you're asking to do. When you're saying that, well, you got your singles mom with tons of kids or a couple kids, and single moms love you, right? A single dad for a while. So you got single parents with kids. You got other situations. You're describing a perfect situation of two people getting married shortly after high school, graduating, paying $10 an hour, getting paid $10 an hour. However, when you start asking society to pay for your personal decisions, that is a step too far for me. That's a step too far. You have your own decisions to make. You do have to pay for those decisions. Just like I myself accept the consequences of the actions of us fighting the government and fighting government control and overreach. Other individuals have to pay for those consequences. You have a kid early on, you got to get to work. That's a consequence, right? I'm not saying for the kid to go hungry. That's not what I'm asking for. And I'm not necessarily even saying that there shouldn't be any ways that the government can help out at all, right? What I'm saying is to believe you solve poverty, solve these problems by just helicoptering in cash is incorrect. It ignores what you're doing. What you need is people to get jobs. You need people to make better life decisions. You need to put people in a better position to make a good life decision. And you don't do that by just giving them cash. It incentivizes them actually to do the quite opposite. You do that by making sure you provide opportunities. And you don't provide opportunities as a government, necessarily. You provide opportunities using nonprofits, and you provide opportunities through different programs done at a city level. See, I think one of the greatest problems with our country as it was designed, one of our greatest issues we have here, is though our system of control, city, state, or city, county, government, state, federal, flows the way it's supposed to through the Constitution, right? As we see, the governors have the ability to declare emergency for the state, so on and so forth. What we don't see is the money, the tax dollars flowing in that same direction. And that's a long fight to do. But eventually, if we saw our tax dollars flowing in a different direction from town up to state, up to county, up to state, up to federal government, I think you'd see a little bit more differences. But that's still, I think that gives people more control over their tax dollars and how it's being spent. I think that one-size-fits-all programs don't work. I think paying every single person in the country the same amount of money and incentivizing bad behavior doesn't work. I think it comes from the same thought processes that say all you need to do to solve homelessness is give a person a house, which is quite frankly and simply just not true. Well, guys, that's my show for you guys today. Once again, if you want to help, you can donate to donate.brewedco.com, BREWEDCO.com. You can also buy from us online, shop.brewedco.com. Check us out in the shop, in the store. Enjoy coming by and supporting us there. As far as that goes, guys, thank you so much for listening, stopping by. Feel free to share us. Have a great day.